You're listening to the MurphologyPodcast. Thanks for tuning in to the MurphologyPodcast. AKA Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from bicyclists who have pedaled to places all over the U.S. Each week, we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? Well, on the show today is Aaron Harrison. Hey, Aaron.
Hey.
Or should I call you Aaron Rambo Harrison?
Most of my friends call me Rambo, but my wife calls me Aaron, so
Okay.
it's interchangeable.
Okay, good. So I'll call you Rambo. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, it's a nickname I've been stuck with since high school. So.
Well, I'm very glad to have you on the show today. We have several topics to discuss, and they're kind of random, I guess, if listeners are just tuning in, like, what? But a few fun topics that I think we should discuss would be your mileage for 2019, which is mind-blowing, over 13,000. The other topic is, I'm just going to call it street change because it's just equally mind-blowing that you find money everywhere, all the time, almost daily.
Almost daily.
Yeah. And then the third thing is not super bike related, but it is bike related because you duplicate album covers and put yourself into those album covers. And I think most of the time you're wearing a bike helmet.
Yes, mostly. Actually, there's three things that every single one has. A bicycle helmet, my cat sparkles, and a specialized tri-spoke.
Oh, perfect. Well, let's get into all three of those. But first, I want you to tell us about where you live and what bicycling is like there.
I live in the beautiful town of Portland, Oregon. Actually, I live in one of the suburbs, but I work in downtown Portland. We have super moderate weather. I think we're famous for our rain. I'm going to lose my Society of Native Oregon-born card for telling you this, but we actually don't get that much real rain. We just get 9 months of drizzle. And so it's very mild. Average winter temperature is in the middle 40s. So, if you have good rain gear, good fenders, it's extremely rideable and very easy to get around.
I'm going to assume that you ride year-round if you're talking about mild temperatures.
Yeah, I ride pretty much every day. The part of the impetus is I enjoy riding. I do a little racing, so my commute is part of my training. And also working in downtown Portland, I can't afford to park my car, so there's a good motivation to ride my bicycle.
Sure. And you said you work downtown Portland. What kind of work do you do?
I work for a bike shop.
Oh, cool.
My official title is inventory and warranty manager, but I also help out on the sales floor and wear lots of hats like any small bike shop.
And you mentioned Portland weather. I'm assuming that your daily commute is maybe a combination of trails and roads, or how would you describe your daily commute?
Well, the truth is there's two primary ways to actually get from my side of town to Portland. I live west of Portland, and there's a series of hills called the West Hills that I have to pass through. And depending on which bike I'm riding or how strong or weak I'm feeling, the route can be as short as about 13 and a half miles one way, which involves the most climbing. We'll call it the high gravity route, or somewhere in the 19 to 21 range, which we'll call the low gravity route because it's a little more circuitous, taking a lower climb over the hill. Mm-hmm. And most of the options involve or offer some level of multi-use path. So there's definitely a lot of options as to how big a hurry I'm in and or how tired I am of dealing with automobiles on my commute. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, at the beginning and the end, the options kind of evaporate and you end up riding on major streets anyways.
Sure. And if you do it every day, you've either come to terms with traffic or you have found some low travel areas.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm especially tired of traffic, there are some routes that are not quite as direct that I'll use, or you just learn to treat them like big, dumb, dangerous animals.
That is true. Okay, so take away your daily commute, which obviously is quite a few miles. Do you have a couple places that you really enjoy to ride in your area?
Well, there's a lot of really good riding around here. Because of Portland metro area having a what they call an urban growth boundary, once you get outside of this imaginary line, it's all farm country. So we have pretty high urban density, for a small West Coast, well, I won't say small, but we'll say a medium West Coast city. But once you get outside that imaginary line, it's like you're in farm country, and traffic's much lower, and the road quality is okay. We get a lot of chip seal in rural areas around town. It benefits from this trend towards fatter tires on bikes.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to ride west of Portland a lot because I live west of here, out into the foothills of the Coast Range when I'm feeling like climbing. But also, I live in the Tualatin River Valley, which if I don't feel like climbing, I can go for a 30, 40-mile ride and climb maybe 200 feet total. I mean, it's pancake flat. But if I feel like climbing, I can climb into the West Hills or the foothills of the Cascades or the Coast Range. And there's great riding there. East of Portland, there's the Columbia River Gorge, and there's actually state of Oregon is in the process of putting in a bicycle pedestrian only path that takes into actually uses a lot of the old historic highway that they've shut down over the years.
Nice.
So you can go south. The Oregon Board of Tourism actually has a wing called Or Bike, where they've put in bicycle routes, suggested bicycle routes, and they've signed them. So you can head from Portland to Eugene, where the University of Oregon is, on these approved routes, and they have suggested routes and campsites or hotels. It's like there's a lot of amazing riding, and it's easy to find.
Mm-hmm. I follow some entity on, I believe, Facebook that's like Portland focused. I don't know if it's the city of Portland that runs the page, but they are always promoting either new bike lanes or changes to bike routes. It's really it's exciting to watch that.
That might be bikeportland.org, which is actually a local blog.
Yeah, I bet you're right. It sounds like you have a lot of variety as far as where you can cycle, which is so nice to be able to be in a downtown atmosphere, and then how quickly you can be out in the open air in the wilderness, and then you've also got the coast right there. But what bikes or bike do you have, and what do you enjoy riding the most?
Well, I have having worked in the bike industry since high school, and I'm now 47. I have a small fleet. I've got a couple of dedicated rain bikes. Living in Oregon, any serious cyclist needs to have at least one bike with fenders on it all the time. I have two, and I have a number of I'll say moderately nice road bikes. And I 7-8 months a year is spent grinding away on my rain bikes, and they're built for durability. So they're not light, and the fit is identical to all my other bikes. I actually have a bike fit background, but one weighs 36 pounds, the other weighs 34 pounds, and one single speed, and the other's fixed gear. And so sometimes getting up over the hill is a bit of a chore, but
sure.
I figure it's pushing those monsters up the hill. I don't have to spend as much time lifting weights in the gym over the winter. So
that's true.
Probably my favorite bike is I have a custom Co-Motion Cycles aluminum road bike they built for me 2013, 2014. I've been riding the same basic bike from them since 2005. I think I've ridden that bike, the equivalent of around the planet 2 or 3 times now. And actually, the weather's nice enough that I got to ride it today. It was a special treat for we're almost spring.
Yeah.
I race the track. I actually specialize in the time trials events. I have a time trial bike and I have a sprint bike, and I don't know why I have one, mostly because I think I had too much money at that point because I'm not a strong sprinter. And I do little road time trialing, so I have an old road time trial bike. And unfortunately with kids, I don't get to mountain bike much because the flip side of the urban growth boundary is that all the good mountain bike trails are 45 minutes in any direction. Sure. Yeah. So unless I want to ride on fire roads, there isn't really a whole lot of great off-road around us unless I can invest the time and in the hour and a half that it takes to get to and from a trail, a pretty nice road ride in. And so scheduling, unfortunately, has killed a lot of my dirt.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that you do time trial, like that's your specialty. Is that something that's done out on the roads, or are you at a track?
I primarily specialize in timed events on the track.
Okay.
We have actually the Alpenrose Velodrome, the steepest concrete track in the country. I think the only privately owned velodrome in the U.S., built in the late 60s for national championships. And unfortunately, the owners of the property have sold the dairy, and they're indicating that they plan to sell the property at some point. So we might only get the velodrome for another 2 years. So we're all scrambling to find another venue to race our bicycles in circles.
That's too bad, especially knowing that I'm sure there's some really great history in that facility.
Yeah, they actually used to be the home site for the Little League World Series, and since the whole sale, there was actually a ton of lawsuits flying in both directions between various members of the family, pro and against the sale of the property. And so the Little League World Series decided to pack their bags, and they've gone somewhere else. Apparently, we also have like one of the only Alpenrose is one of the only quarter midget tracks in the Northwest. And so, yeah, there's a lot of facilities that have gotten a lot of use, a lot of benefit to the local community that unfortunately are going away when and if the property does get sold. And it's a great big chunk of land in the middle of Portland. Portland's kind of southwest side, so I'm sure it's worth a chunk of change for putting up housing.
Sure. Well, I'll cross my fingers that it's years away instead of months away for you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Yeah. A quick interruption to tell you this week's podcast is sponsored by Lizard Lips Lip Balm. These great lip balms contain natural ingredients, come in a variety of flavors, and you can choose certified organic or balms with sun protection. Check it out at lizardlips.net. Now back to the show. Well, let's get into the topic of street change. And that's literally meaning money that you find on the street. And it's amazing to say, but you find street change almost every day. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, so far this year, I have found at least a penny every single day I've ridden outside.
Wow. And we are into, the recording time is the beginning of March of 2020. So you're talking every day you've found at least a penny.
Yeah,
wow.
every. In fact, it's kind of funny because my Facebook memories popped up yesterday, and as of beginning of March 2019, I had $3, and so far this year I'm actually over 14. So I've had a strong start.
Dang. Well, tell us about how this got started.
Well, so my commute is anywhere between 26 and 40 miles every day. And especially through the winter when I'm grinding out the miles on the heavy slow bikes, I was kind of looking for something to amuse myself, to kind of brighten the gray grind to work every day. And so I started, occasionally I'd find a coin. And at first I was only stopping for silver coins, nickels, dimes, quarters. And but then I decided I was going to pick up pennies. And as soon as I started picking up pennies, it's like I would stop for a penny and find a nickel, or I'd stop for a penny and find a dime. So apparently coins are very social creatures, because it's pretty rare to stop to pick one up and not find something else. And that was late 2018. And then I decided sometime late December that I was going to start keeping it, because before it was like going towards various snack treats and coffee drinks.
Yeah.
And I would just, I was like, I need 30 cents, and I happen to have something I found. I decided, that I was going to start collecting it all in a jar, find out how much I actually got. And I started off with a little 2-3 ounce jar, and filled it pretty short order. And actually one of my employer's wife, who follows me on Instagram, gave me a Costco size jar. I completely filled that in 2019. I ended up with just a touch over $78.
$78 in change?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know, actually, my daughter and I sorted it all out and counted it January 5th, January 6th this year. I don't remember the actual breakdown. I know I only had $1 coin I found, but I do remember having something like $5.38 in pennies. So that's 538 pennies that I found.
Dang. And that just goes to show you, if you pick up enough, it's actually worthwhile.
Yeah, it's worth picking up those pennies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And everything else.
That's mind-blowing, $78 worth of change. And are you changing up your route every day? I know you told me kind of the mileage if you do the hill route or the little bit flatter route, but are you changing streets so that...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, there's basically one major artery that I'm taking on a regular basis, but there's a bunch of arterials that lead into that. And I will definitely change that route on a regular basis because, I've discovered it pays off.
Sure.
It seems like if I ride the same route over and over and over again, the chance for finding change goes down. And the weird thing though is like there's a 2 or 3 mile stretch that I ride pretty much every day. There's been weeks where it's like I'll find change every single day on it. And so obviously there's people actively dropping it somehow.
Right.
And, I find like the best places that I found for it are intersections, bus stops, and near schools. So I guess I must be getting people's bus fare and or lunch money, but
At some point they're looking like, I thought I had the exact amount of change
exactly.
somewhere. And then here's you in the background, like, rubbing your hands together like, wow,
Yes.
this is going towards my $78. Oh, that's great. Have you ever found paper money?
Actually, the first ride I did of this year, I found two $1 bills.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's been it. It's kind of funny because I actually have some folks that I follow on Instagram, that have, I think one person found a moldy 20, and actually one of my employers talks about finding two $10 bills here in downtown Portland. And it's like I almost never find paper money. It's like I find a lot of coins, which is it definitely adds up at a slower rate, but apparently at this point it's adding up just fine.
Wow. And I guess, the obvious question for me at least is that if you're finding a lot of coins each day, that's probably slowing down your commute a little bit because you see it, you pedal past it, then you stop, you have to go back.
Yeah, I think it's cost me, maybe a mile an hour or two average speed total. I think it depends on like where I see it and if I do have to double back for it. Because coming home on Monday, I actually found 3 pennies coming home, which is nighttime change is a rare special treat. And I found it. I stopped at one intersection and there was a penny, and a little while later I stopped at another intersection and there was another penny just right next to my wheel. And I think the third one I had to double back for, but. So sometimes it's like it'll be right there, and sometimes I have to double back for it. So it's again it's purely it's a chance thing. Roll the dice.
Right. If I knew your route and I was in the Portland area, I would just sprinkle change, like for a whole mile straight, and then it could be like just the biggest day ever. Like, holy moly, I found $7 in change in one day.
I actually did have a friend who follows me on Strava last year. Seeded like a 9/10 of a mile section for me, and it's like I think it pulled like just shy of $2 out of there. It's like this is kind of surreal because it's like it's like penny, nickel, dime, quarter, and it was probably fun for people driving by to watch because it's like I'd ride for a couple feet and I'd stop, and I'd ride for another couple feet and stop, and I'd ride another couple feet and stop, and then I'd double back because it's like I saw something behind me, and it was really bizarre, and finally he admitted to doing that, but beyond that. I don't think anybody else has been seeding my route at all.
And if they are, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you have a plan for how to spend the money, or is it once the year's over, you're just like, that's awesome, and then a new year starts?
At this point, I really don't have a plan for how to spend it. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to cash in my change from last year because my bank, they have one location on my side of town with a change counter, and it's been broken since late December.
Oh, geez.
And I don't want to be that guy that brings the jar of change in and forces the teller to count it. But I've now been in there twice. The change counter's been broken both times, and unfortunately, I don't have a phone number for the branch, so I can't call in to check. So I might be that guy eventually because I've got $78 in change in a Ziploc bag that I want to get rid of.
Right.
I want to buy myself something fun.
A quick interruption to tell you this week's sponsor is Thirsty Pigs, a full-service mobile event company offering beer, wine, spirits, plus catering for any indoor or outdoor event. And the Thirsty Pig Cycling Tour is coming up May 30th. Check out more at thirstypigs.com. Now back to the show. I'm pretty sure that I saw somewhere that you rode over 13,000 miles last year.
Yeah, I don't know I've got it written down somewhere, but I rode just maybe a touch over 13,000 miles.
That's an amazing achievement. I don't know if you feel that way. Like there's probably very few people listening to this or just that are on bicycles that can, or they probably can accomplish the goal, but they haven't.
Well, the funny thing was probably 10 years back, my wife gave me a little notebook that I started keeping track of my mileage in because I think I was keeping on track of it on a wall calendar. And that was hard to keep track of, from one year to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So she gave me a little notebook and I started keeping track of my mileage, and then I tally up my months and I tally up my years, and unfortunately I apparently am very competitive with myself. And so it got to the point where it's like I had to do a little more every year. I think in 2018 I I did a touch over 12. 2019, coming into December, I hit 12 right at the beginning of the month, and I had a coworker said, "So are you going for 13?" I said, "No, I don't want to have to kill myself."
Right.
And then I decided to kill myself, and I'll admit that some of those mileage do come. I'll ride the trainer or the rollers,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm turning those pedals, it's miles are miles.
Sure, sure.
I think it's funny because I had a customer once who, after retiring, rode his bike every single day. He started off on a inexpensive mountain bike and proceeded to ride that thing into the ground. And then he got a nicer road bike, and he is riding mileage close to the 12, 13,000 mile range. And basically, all you do is you just have to ride 30 miles every day, and it's about being consistent.
Right. Yeah. And it helps you, especially if you're goal focused, which obviously that you are if you've tried to beat years past, but you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh man, it's drizzly out again. But yet you have that in the back of your head of, all right, I only have to do 30 miles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, also, a good way to hit those goals is to just make riding a habit. Because at this point, it's not really, I think about, it's like, I'll look out the window and I'll check the weather and I'll check the radar. I'm a little compulsive about that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's like mostly I'm compulsive because I want to ride a go fast bike. I don't want to ride my rain bike. But the truth is like just part of the routine now. It's like I get up, I make my coffee, top off the tires on the bike that I'm most likely riding, and start packing my bag. At this point, it's more automatic than anything, so it just kind of happens. Because I find if I have to think too much about it, it's like I might find a reason to, well, maybe I'll just ride the train today, or it's like, I don't have to. I know I'm not working, so I'm not going to go for a ride. If you just create a routine about it, it's actually very easy to achieve mileage goals because they just kind of happen.
Well said. So obviously you ride your bike beyond just your commute. So do you have like adventures on your horizon, whether it's time trial races or just other biking events coming up?
Well, nothing on the immediate horizon. Since Alpenrose is an outdoor track, it really isn't generally rideable until June, and invariably we get a lot of early season rain in June, so we might start racing in July. It's right next to a neighborhood, so it doesn't have any lighting, so it's kind of a short season, generally July through the end of August. My biggest goal is actually the goal I tried to hit last year was when I was a junior, the ripe old age of 18. I actually set the track record for the 3-kilometer pursuit, 3-kilometer time trial. Then a year after I became a senior, I turned 19. Junior Phenom took it from me, and that record has now stood since 92. And I decided that I wanted to take it back.
Nice.
And so last year, actually it was my big goal in 2018, but I actually didn't get to race at all because I changed employment and didn't have any vacation time to take. So last year I went at it pretty hard. The insult to injury is I got within hundredths of a second of it. So this year is the big year. That's my primary focus is to take back my track record, especially before Alpenrose potentially goes away. So go out with a bang, so to speak. With working retail hours and having kids, riding opportunities, I fit it in where I can. So it's like typically I'll take shorter rides on my days off, especially while the kids are in school. So the irony is I think I ride more when the kids are in school than when they're not because I have a weekday off. So it's like kids are in school, so I've got this window that I can fit in a ride if I can take care of everything else. But things I'd really love to do someday. My dad lives in Central Washington. There's a lot of really gorgeous riding that I'd love to do, like to ride to his place. And they have that awesome trail out in the Columbia River Gorge, which I've only ridden very small sections of. And that actually goes quite a ways out now. I think it goes from, you can actually ride from the east side of Portland all the way out to maybe the Dalles now. So it's like, I think it's 60, 80 miles. And it's all, or vast majority of it is actually off street. And they've actually built viaducts and bridges and tunnels specifically for this trail system. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Well, your Instagram account is amazing, and that's actually how we ended up talking today because I somehow found you and started following you. But you've got, of course, your daily pics of your street change, but you also, and this is something I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, you insert your head into famous album covers. So how did that become a thing?
That's another one of those random whimsy things.
Yeah.
I was riding home April 7th of last year. My 1 year anniversary is coming up. It must have been a Sunday because it was light out and it was just absolutely dumping rain. And I was feeling kind of like a drowned rat. I have a camera on my bike. Decided to take some photos of myself to kind of document the drowned rat nature. And I took a picture. It just popped in my brain. I was thinking rain jacket required. And then I started thinking about Phil Collins' album, No Jacket Required.
Mm-hmm.
I went home and looked up the album. Then I decided that the photo I took looked an awful lot like that. So I popped the photo into the editing app on Instagram. Rain jacket required. And so the first covers I did were typically me trying to imitate the pose on the cover in the real world. And then I actually got Photoshop app for my phone, and I started like cutting my head off and putting it onto the body. And that's how my cat and my tri-spoke get in the pictures as well.
I love it. I don't know if you want this, but if people want to follow you on Instagram, are you willing to give out your Instagram account name?
Yeah, my handle on Instagram is Rambobikeman.
Rambobikeman. It's super fun too. You entertain, which I'm assuming that's one of your goals. You probably entertain yourself, but I'm entertained as well.
Yeah, I think it's at first it was entertaining myself, and then it's like I've gotten so much positive response from friends and people that just randomly popped it or bumped into my account that it's a lot of fun. Trying to keep the quality up is the hard part now.
Oh yeah, now people are expecting it from you.
I have a friend who actually is a professional Photoshop website guy, and he says that stuff looks pretty good, especially considering I'm just doing it on my phone. So high praise there.
I love it. Yeah. Last question for you. Back to that 13,000 plus miles that you put on last year. Do you have any advice you would give someone who doesn't think they can ride even 1,000 miles in a year?
I think, kind of getting back to in some cases, like I think it's easier to break it into small pieces. If you look at 1,000 miles, that sounds like a lot. But if you do a bunch of 20-mile rides, it's easy to achieve that goal much, much faster, or at least it becomes less intimidating. And, I really don't look at it. It's like, yes, my goal is to match 13,000 miles, but I don't look at that every single day. It's like, hey, I want to ride 30 miles today, or I want to ride 40 miles a day. And it's just a matter of breaking it into smaller bites, I think makes it more palatable, so to speak, easier to wrap your brain around. And making it a habit, just riding on a regular basis, because if your goals are significant, it's like you either have to a couple of significant rides to add up, or a lot of little rides add up very quickly.
And I think bottom line, and you've proven this, you have to enjoy it. I mean, even when it's rainy or yucky weather, you're still out there and taking pictures and finding change, and you give off a feeling that you truly enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I love riding. I'm one of those people that has zero gross motor coordination, so classic U.S. sports I've never had any aptitude for, so cycling is my thing.
Awesome. Rambo, I am super excited that you were on the podcast today, and I'm looking forward to two things, to see you, break your mileage goal, if that's something that you decide to pursue all year, but more importantly, your time trial race. Like, oh my gosh, that's super exciting.
Thanks. Yeah. I tweaking things here and there, trying to hit it. So I think what I need to make sure that all my friends at the track are screaming at me as I'm approaching it, because I finished it and one of the guys are going, apparently you don't listen very well. And it's like, what? I didn't hear anything. It's like, oh, well, you missed it by like 1600th of a second or something. It was so small it hurt. It was painful. When you're in the pain cave, it's don't necessarily hear anything around you other than yourself breathing. Yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that your streak continues on the street change.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been exciting so far this year.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for this week. Email me your topics or names of cyclists you find interesting at MurphologyPodcast@gmail.com. Also, check out the website MurphologyPodcast.com to find all kinds of great info. I'll leave you with this quote from the Unwritten Book of Murphology. This quote is from Carl Sandburg. "Time is the coin of life. Only you can determine how it will be spent. Think about it."